the standard legal disclosure.
Take it away, Brian.
All right. So my name is Brian Collister. I'm an investigative reporter and longtime SBJ member. Back when I was in college is when I joined at Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, Texas. So I'm also the chair of the Awards and Honors Committee, and our co-chair, Joanna Hernandez, is here. Joanna, why don't you briefly give a little bio for everybody of your background?
Yeah, sure. I'm like really excited to be here. I'm Joanna Hernandez. I'm actually a professor at the University of Florida, and I teach journalism. So this is like really a great opportunity to share with students, and also I'm so interested in all of the awards. I'm co-chair of this, and I've been on many of the journalism associations. But when I was living in New York, because right now I'm in Florida, as you know. I was part of the Deadline Club, an SPJ, and have done things for SPJ and worked on other committees. And I'm honored to be here with you today.
Great. And so we're here for the student population, student members, and we're going to be essentially giving you tips and tricks on how to enter and hopefully win a Mark of Excellence Award. Speaking of excellence, our SPJ president, Rebecca Aguilar, is here. And I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca and let her say hello. And again, we have people live in the room, but we're also recording this for future use. So here is El Presidente, Rebecca Aguilar.
Thank you, Brian. Welcome, everyone, tonight. I appreciate that you're here. I appreciate all the panelists. I appreciate the organizers, Lou, Brian, Joanna, of course, all the students. It is important to be part of this conversation because I know, and Brian knows, and all of us that are professionals, we know that there are bosses out there that look at things and go, look at this award. Look what exclusive they had. Look what story they broke or what law they changed because of the journalism that has been done on the student level, not the professional level, the student level. And so what we want to do is make sure you get that head start. Make sure you're noticed. SPJ is about making sure you're noticed and recognized for your great work. So tonight, suck up all the information that you're going to get here, because it always feels good to take home an award because you've worked hard for it and because it's great to get that pat on the back. So I wish all of you good luck. Write down notes. I'm here because, hey, I'm not done winning awards. So it's always good to get tips. I'll take it, I'll take any questions later on, Brian. I'll throw it back to you.
Great. I do want to introduce Lou. Lou is our manager of publications and awards at our headquarters. And so if you were to email about the awards, you might likely interact with Lou. Lou, give us just a brief background of what you handle in terms of the execution of these awards and fielding questions and giving answers.
Sure. In running the multiple awards programs at SBJ, including the Mark of Excellence Awards and the Sigma Delta Chi Awards, which are our professional awards, we get thousands of entries. So there is a lot of coordination involved and a lot of working with the committee to figure out what our categories are going to be as our field evolves. So there's a big factor in that. On the side of that, I also edit Quill, which is SPJ's magazine, and quillmag.com, our website, which has original stories in there. I'm a career journalist, so I am very excited to see the entries, to get excited about the future of journalism when I see the current work being done. Another big part of the job is coordinating our judges, and we will talk about that as the discussion continues.
Great. So you can reach out to Lou at headquarters. Lou, can you put your email in the in the chat? And then if anyone has a question, I'm sure it's on the website as well. But we also have two student journalists with us on brief introductions, Alexandra and Bowman. And also we have Megan Leibowitz. And now I want you each, let's start with Alexandra. Give us a brief rundown of where you're in school and your involvement with SPJ. And now both of them are previous winners. So we have them here to tell you some of their tips and tricks.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexandra Bowman, and I am currently a senior at Georgetown University. I'm also in Georgetown's ADMA English program, so I'll be graduating a year early with a master's in English at age 23, which I'm really excited about. Thank you. I had the honor of winning SBJ's regional for, I think I'm region 2 in DC, and the national award in editorial cartooning in 2019. So that was a huge, huge honor, and I'm so excited to learn what I did right so I can learn for myself. So thank you.
I wanted to be able to show your work. I will pull it up in a little bit. Let's now go to Megan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm a senior at Northwestern studying journalism and political science. I was a regional winner for a feature story that I worked on, a broadcast story for 2019 about plastic waste and how researchers were working to get rid of the plastic problem. And then this past year, I'm also co-news director of Northwestern News Network, which is the broadcast organization at Northwestern. And for the year of 2020, Northwestern News Network won a regional award for Best All-Around Newscast as well. And that was for our COVID special report, which we aired in April of 2020. And that was the first of what turned out to be many newscasts that were reported and produced entirely remotely.
Fantastic. Now, I know we have a couple of people who are participating, including Rick. We have Kevin, and I'm sorry, I think I lost
Monique.
Who?
Monique Fields.
Monique, yes. So if you all have questions, because since you're here, we want to specifically answer your questions, put them in the chat and then we'll address them. But first, so as the head of the committee, I was forced to do this job by Rebecca Aguilar. It was a threat and I gave in. And so that's why I'm here. No, I've been a long-time SBJ member. I'd love to do whatever I can do to help. Rebecca asked, I'm in. So we've done some revamping. We've added some categories, which we're going to go through here in just a little bit. But the key for me to communicate to you in terms of when you're entering an award is enter your best work and expect anything from winning to never hearing another word. Awards are random, subjective. They obviously, there are lots of different awards out there. We go out of our way to find the best judges we can, to find the quality work, but sometimes it's just not your day. And it's up to the judges at the end of the day. So try to do what you can to capture their attention, try to put the best foot forward in terms of your work. We have some tips and tricks. I know Rebecca has some from when she enters, and everyone else through the list here can give sort of their tips and tricks. For me, it's all about trying to, the best example I can give you is having been in television for 20 years, trying to get a job, a resume tape. I've been in a news director's office and fed, this is when we had tape, fed a tape in, and you would hit play, and there was a reporter job opening and someone would pop up with their work, and in about 6, 7, 8 seconds, they'd say, out, and they'd punch it out. Now, if they went past that, that means that the content captured them. So that's what you're trying to do with the judges. You don't want them to, shortly after watching or starting to read, to say, oh, you know, I'm done here. You want to grab them just like you do your reader or your viewer or your listener and pull them in. So that's the best tip that I can give. Lou, why don't we have you explain some of the new categories? We have new Spanish language categories, but why don't we run through the new categories, unless you think there's another topic we should hit first.
No, that's great. The Spanish language categories are for our professional SDX awards.
Oh, that's right.
We don't have them yet in the college division, but that could be something in the future, which I'd love to see happen eventually. One of the things those who have entered the contest in the past will notice is that many of the online and print categories have been combined, and that includes some of the magazine categories. Our reasoning there is that this business is evolving. A lot of what had shown up exclusively in print before now also appears online. There's not a strong distinction between the kind of work that appears online. Not much difference between that and what would otherwise appear in print. So we've combined many of those categories. In terms of brand new categories, we're excited about a number of them. One is we've added a category for cultural criticism. We know that there are people writing critically about dance, about literature, about theater, about music, and television, and we want to see what that work is like. You are also journalists, critics, and we'd love to see excellent work, and we'd love to celebrate that. Similarly, we realize that there are additional categories. We do still have our sports categories, and we have our investigative reporting categories. We have feature writing, but we wanted to also see what college journalists were doing when it came to food and restaurant journalism. And actually, food review columns would go in here and not in cultural criticism. But there's a lot of work being done about sort of the hospitality business, and we'd love to see entries there. We've also added a category for art and fashion journalism. Again, areas that a lot of people are writing about, but it's not necessarily being celebrated. And I think that there's quality work out there, and we're looking forward to seeing those. A number of years ago, there was enthusiasm for in one of our regions, and we ended up incorporating video game reporting as a category, where we're expanding that a little bit to be video game and tabletop game reporting. And we'll see what we get there, but the response has been really strong to video game reporting in the past. So think about your arts and fashion pieces. Think about your food and restaurant journalism and restaurant reviews and food reviews and cooking pieces and all of that, profiles of chefs doing innovative work. And think about cultural criticism. We love it when student papers get out there and actually think critically about what they're seeing. These are skills that are valuable, whether you stay in criticism or end up elsewhere. So we want to see that work. We want to celebrate it. We look forward to adding those awards.
Great. So we have some maybe not obvious, quite frequently asked questions, right, Lou?
Yes.
So Lou, can I, in the MOEs, can I enter the same story in more than one category?
In most cases, you cannot. We make exceptions for instance, if there's photography or videography that you're entering, if you're entering the work as photography or as videography, but the overall piece is, say, a feature story or an investigative piece, you can enter both of those categories. But for the exact same story, you cannot enter, for instance, a story in feature reporting and also arts fashion journalism. You must choose one or the other.
So another common question is, what if I'm interning, and I'm interning at the paper, or I'm interning at a digital site or a TV or radio station? Can I enter that work?
Yes, you can, provided that you have not had fully professional work in the past. So if you are, if you spent 3 years working at a newspaper and then you went back to school and now you're interning somewhere else, you're ineligible across the board for Mark of Excellence awards. If you have done some freelance work, that's okay. Please put a clear explanation in the cover letter, though, explaining your relationship with the publication, because we want to make sure that we're not awarding work that has been heavily edited by professionals. We want to make sure we're seeing your work.
And what if my work comes from the classroom and I turn it in for a grade, but it wasn't published or publicized anywhere?
That work as of now is not eligible. We're in discussions about how to approach that work in the future, but we're not taking it at this time. But if you are able to find a market for it online, then it becomes published work. So think about that, and that's actually something that I think is helpful outside of the Mark of Excellence Awards or any awards program. If you have done outstanding work in a class, it shows some initiative and builds clips if you can find a home for that.
Lou, let's go to the chat.
Sure.
We have one from Kevin. And then Rebecca has one. So Kevin says, cultural criticism says submit 3 to 5 pieces. Is that from one person or one outlet?
That's one writer. And if you've written for 3 different publications, a student publication, and then you've had something published, that's perfectly fine. We want to see the breadth of your work, and we want to make sure in that case that the one piece does not make a critic. So we'd like to see more examples of your work.
Great. And let's see, I believe you had a follow-up. By published, does that include departmental as well as student media?
That is a good question.
So student media
I think
qualify,
if it's
right?
yeah, student media definitely. If it's I would need a little clearer idea of what you're talking about there. If it's published by like if there's a department newsletter or a department publication.
It is a
sure.
department publication of the best work done by students who aren't necessarily on the staff of the newspaper. The newspaper is all I've got at this point.
Okay.
And they can only take so much.
Sure. And by published, do you mean, I'm not sure what form you're talking about.
It's all online.
Okay.
Even our student newspaper is online. The printer went out of business in the pandemic and they haven't found a new printer yet.
Gotcha. I believe that should be acceptable.
Yep.
That should be acceptable. But again, explain in your cover letter where the pieces appear.
Now, Rebecca asked, can you enter in student and professional if, for example, the story ended up in the Dallas Morning News, but I was in my internship?
Sure. Anyone can enter if a story was published in a professional outlet, and it could be entered in SDX. We don't cross-reference SDX and MLE.
Is there anybody else that's in the group, in the chat, on camera, off camera, anyone that has a specific question? If you do.
Well, I usually, when I have students who want to enter, they might be, a lot of the students who I teach are about to graduate. So what happens if they have graduated and they want to enter something that they have had published?
Sure. If they have already graduated, as long as the piece was published while they were a student, then it's acceptable. Pieces published afterwards, you're on, move over to SDX. But as long as they were a student when the piece was published.
And we have, do you see that in the chat from Alexandra?
Yes. Can work submitted in previous years or work created in previous years be submitted? If it was published in previous years, but there's really, and we are talking about calendar year, but there isn't really a way, if somebody is, for instance, a cartoonist, we look at the date that it was published. And if something is reprinted, we would encourage you not to enter. We want something that was published during the calendar year.
So Lou, when we say that in our, in the rules, that this is for a certain time period. So you did something during that time period, and then you graduated, but the work you did was during that time period and you were a student, you can enter that.
That's correct. Yes. As long as you were a student, you're good.
So
there's something interesting in the chat that Rebecca had asked, and I'd like to know that too. I mean, considering that Alex and Megan are winners, I mean, it'd be great to get some insight on them and how they chose their work, and what made you think that it was going to win?
Let's start with Megan. Megan, tell us the work that you did, how you chose it, how you entered it, and give us all the tips and tricks.
Sure. So for Northwestern News Network, I'm news director of that program. So the show that one of the shows that we had submitted was our COVID-19 special report. And when we were in discussions about what shows we wanted to submit, one thing that we were thinking about is what might be more unique or set us apart more during the process. And a lot of our other shows that had been eligible had been our more typical newscasts that had taken place in the studio before COVID started taking off. And so we had to get really creative with how we went about producing with our first show that ended up being produced entirely remotely. And so we ended up trying to have like more reporters tossing to each other instead of having the anchor do it more, because we were facing some technical challenges with everyone being spread out all around the world, really. And so we tried to do something that was in a bit of a different format that we thought might make it more memorable. And then with my story from 2019, one thing that I tried to focus on was which of my stories were the most visual, since I do broadcast journalism. So I wanted to make sure that what I had engaging B-roll that was interesting, and that I could sequence. And so for that story, a lot of the story took place in a lab, and I got to shadow a scientist who was doing research. And so I was able to sort of follow him around and record him as he was prepping for experiments, which I thought was really interesting. So I was able to get a lot of B-roll to sequence that, which I think made the story end up being more visually engaging than some of my other work, which is why I submitted that story.
One thing I wanted to jump in on that you mentioned, because you're talking about broadcast, there's sometimes some confusion. We have categories for videography. That is different than the categories for the content itself. When our videography categories are for the actual video work, sort of not judging the content, but the excellence of the videography. And so that's something just to consider as other folks are entering and considering entry awards.
And Megan, how did you make it especially interesting to the judges and handle the 100-word essay part?
For the 100-word essay, I tried to write it not so much, I guess, as an essay, but more as if I were writing a print story to accompany my piece, but then also with writing at the end about how I went about reporting and producing that, because I wanted it to be engaging and people not to just sort of drop off after the first sentence. So stack it as I would a print.
So
Sorry?
Did you keep it short, or did you use up all 100 words?
I think I kept it fairly short because I also I didn't want to lose interest. And so I try to just make it the most essential parts and then phrase it more in sort of a print article style at the top, and then include how I went about doing that. That's, if I remember correctly, that's how I did it. It's been a while, but that was at least my goal with it.
And it might help some, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, it might help some entrants to know that very often, because, back in the day when materials were sent in, you would have a stack and there would be the cover letter, and you would read the cover letter and then you would turn to the material. The way things are online now, that's the way our judges judge. It's very possible that your cover letter will be read afterwards, that they'll be looking at the entry, seeing if it's a strong contender, and then looking at the cover letter, opening essay to see if, there's additional information needed, if the story may have had an impact, after the story ran. That's the kind of information they may look for. But entrants should be aware that it may not be read in the order you expect it to be read.
And before we go to Alexander, thank you, Megan. I want Rebecca to touch on that, because when we were having the conversation before about tonight, Rebecca, you talked about having 4 lines and getting to it and getting out. And so your philosophy, Rebecca, I think is something that the students could glean something from.
I think I've learned from judging. I've judged student stuff. I judged professional Emmys too. And I think one of the first things you need is an interesting title. When I judge hurricanes or, breaking news, sometimes you'll get an entry, fire on the south side of Chicago. Okay, that doesn't tell me anything. Or hurricane swept through Florida. Okay, you need a title to suck me in, because I'm looking at a bunch of titles. That's why we had all the titles, and then you decide which one you're gonna judge. If the title sucks me in, I'm gonna go in there. If it's fire East Dallas, that's not gonna tell me anything. So an interesting title is important. Also, less is more. Some people, they give it all away in the essay. Don't. Give me enough to intrigue me to watch it. If you give me the whole story, why should I watch it? Just give me enough to go, man, I got to open this up. I got to see it. I got to read it. I got to listen to it. So that's important too. But remember, when we're judging, some of us have been judging over and over and over. And sometimes it's really the unique pieces. So the ones that make me feel something, those are the ones that really win me over. The ones that I see and I look at, whether it's a cartoon or a picture, if it makes me feel it, I'm going to remember it.
And to clarify just something there, the judges are obligated to read every piece that's in their category. But I agree with Rebecca, and having judged categories for multiple different organizations, including SPJ, when you look at that list, sometimes the most interesting story is the headline is the one you're going to read first. And that becomes the standard by which you're judging the rest. So it can help to have that compelling headline.
So Lou, real quick, there was a question here. Does publication on one's own social media count as publication? Or is that just referred to another kind of official venue, I'm assuming platform?
I think it's going to depend on how much that venue presents as just your own personal blog, or is it an established venue that you've created? And the judge will look around on on your site to see. So if it's, if I were submitting something from louharry.com, I would not expect it to be seriously considered. But if I were operating, whatever, Film Criticism Midwest, and I was contributing to that site that I created, then that I think would get more serious consideration. But if it looks clearly like, well, this is just somebody's sort of basically online resume, and they're just showing samples of their work.
So I would assume that's a good, go ahead, Joanna.
No, because, bringing that up, I mean, I remember that we had this discussion, but what about medium.com, which allows people to publish?
Mm-hmm. I think we would take a look at that material. Yes, we would consider that work.
Right. That's a platform for publication, right?
Right. But this, right. I mean, this is part of what makes this process interesting for us inside, because every year as the world evolves, we need to consider. A few years back, we added podcast as a category. In the SDX Awards for Professionals, we've now broken that up into two separate categories for podcasts. We haven't done that yet with Mark of Excellence, but depending on the entries, that may be. If we see a very large number of entries in a category, we consider whether to divide it. Or on the other hand, if there aren't many entries in one, we figure out how to combine them.
So let's go to Alexandra, one of our other students, and she's at Georgetown. Go Bulldogs, right? Bulldogs?
Oh, it's complicated.
Oh, okay, never mind. That's the thing that looks like a bulldog. Anyway,
it's the Hoyas, but we
Hoya, right?
To gaslight everyone into thinking that bulldogs are called Hoyas. Yeah, exactly.
We'll edit that part out. So, what's really cool is you probably so you put your work, your cartoonist, your illustrations in publications, but you also, I'm sure, put it on your personal Facebook and things like that. But talk us through your methodology. I'm gonna go full screen and show some of your illustrations while you do that.
Excellent. Yeah, I had to pull them up just in case, but yes, if you do it, perfect.
If you want to walk through them, then it's up, whatever is best for you.
Sure. Oh yeah, please do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I'll be honest, like this was my work 2 years ago and I had little to no experience. So I look at that font now and I cringe. Oh geez. But yeah, so I remember I really ran my application by a bunch of people. I also was working for multiple organizations at the time. I was creating work for multiple venues, like an environmental organization, as well as the Georgetown newspaper. And I thought that at the time that making sure I was pulling cartoons from both of those organizations, and pulling cartoons about different topics, not just even about the same topics, but the approach, the commentary with different methodological and rhetorical strategies. I thought that was important. This first cartoons in color, because the organization I was working for at the time had me creating cartoons in color. And then the other two cartoons I submitted were in black and white, which, the Georgetown newspaper wanted them in black and white, which is not ideal, but retrospectively, I think it gave my application an interesting, diversity. But yeah, I chose works that I thought showed off artistic, quote unquote, skill. I chose works that I thought had different varying degrees of humor, that went at issues that were both serious and a little bit more, or at least had slightly lower stakes. So one of them was like, the GOP and Trump are attacking a child. Oh my gosh, that feels borderline abusive. And then this one is a Star Wars reference, and also has a bunch of different caricatures. I really like the Elizabeth Warren one. I got to meet her at Georgetown last week. That was fun. And then that last one, I really like that Nancy Pelosi. That one I thought was an interesting argument that I didn't see a lot of other, at least cartoonists or Georgetown students making. I noticed our student publication, the Hoya, didn't really like it when I talked about national politics. They kind of told me, can you talk about how the dorms faucets are leaking? And so I don't know if that made my application stand out, like, oh, a student publication talking about national politics. Maybe that was unique, I'm not sure. But yes, so I thought talking about a variety of issues, and using a variety of media to show like all around, quote unquote, breadth of skill. I thought at the time that would be a successful approach.
Fantastic. And what are you going to enter this year?
I currently work for John Kerry's environmental organization. It was co-founded by John Kerry and John Kasich, and I do cartoons for them. So I'm thinking of submitting my best ones for them. I also worked for the Lincoln Project from June last year to June this year. So I might submit things that are valid within that calendar year. Actually, one thing that's interesting, Brian, if you don't mind, maybe it might be helpful I also have my other application from last year that was not the winner of any awards, and I might like to just compare them and compare and contrast and see what worked the first time and maybe didn't the second time.
So do you have something you can put up there, or that?
I do. Yeah, I do. Thank you.
I think I only have the link to this work.
Sure.
I have a question real quick.
Maybe.
And this is with
Oh, here it is.
Brian.
Okay.
Brian, I have a question for Lou or you. So Alexandra is doing something for John Kerry. John Kerry, right? Will she be able to enter that if it doesn't?
Probably no. Those would not
fall under journalism,
because right, it falls under advertising, PR, marketing.
Sorry, Alexandra, I had to bring it up.
Sorry about that.
Hang on. Actually, can I clarify what you mean?
Yeah. Well, no, because you just said you're doing work for John Kerry.
Oh, it's his environmental organization called World War Zero. So it's like almost an environmental news platform. So he founded it, but it's certainly not like I'm saying people should go vote for John Kerry or something.
No. I'm just saying there's a. That's why I was asking Lou and Brian, because I get what you're saying, but there's a thin line there. Is it journalism or is it John Kerry's movement?
Right, it has to be for a news organization.
Or is it advocacy, which is what I think that we're trying to draw the line between journalism and advocacy.
Oh, interesting. Maybe I don't want to make this all about me. If I could use it as an example, that might work. But I could pull up a cartoon that I might.
Well, we don't want to pass the judgment now, and that would be something we would need to consider. But it's also, you think about other organizations that have those have publications. And would those be acceptable? But that is something that the committee will have to discuss and make concrete rules for, because that's something we're going to see more and more of as there are sort of privatized news outlets and organizations saying that they're news outlets. But anyway, I don't want to adjudicate that here.
I just thought I'd
Sure.
bring it up since
No,
you.
that's a very good point, and it's a very important point, actually.
Yeah,
One of
well,
the things I'd like to be able to do now, Brian, if you're ready for this, is to show folks actually how to enter our awards program. How do you physically enter? You have those slides available?
I do, and while I'm pulling it up, if you could look in the chat that Rick had sent us a question about the newscast that they tape.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And I'll pull this up while you talk about that.
I would encourage you to send in the best work that you're doing for your outlet, and not to necessarily create, if you're suggesting sort of shooting it in a certain way to make it more awards acceptable, I wouldn't worry so much about that. If there are some glitches, our judges are professionals who understand the challenges of broadcast journalism, especially for students. And I believe if we're not talking about sort of show-stopping mistakes, then I think you'll be okay there. I wouldn't want somebody to say, "Oh, I'm going to create this thing or modify it because I want to have a better chance of winning an award." Serve your market and your students first, is my advice.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we do a 4 o'clock show Monday through Friday, and some semesters we're doing a 4 and a 4:30 show with 2 different teams of students. And so as you're rotating people through this rotation, anchoring, reporting, producing every day, yeah, it's like some of your shows, if we back them up a bit and pre-tape them in the afternoon and just we would stop tape if we screwed something up and go back and redo something. We could certainly maybe come up with a better newscast. We could then literally air from tape live kind of at 4 or 4:30. But we've always kind of wondered if we'd be better off trying to do that every now and then, if it really mattered to the judges or not, if something were done that way.
They're gonna look at the work
Right now,
as
everything is
presented.
live. Yeah,
they're
right now
gonna-
everything is live. We like to keep it live.
Right. Yeah, they're gonna look at the work as presented. And you are welcome to submit whatever work was done for your, whatever you think shows off your work best, your students' work best.
Thank you.
Another question came up, just want to jump, if there's an advantage to submitting earlier as opposed to waiting until later. No, there is not. The judges will receive them after the deadline. Don't receive the material until after the deadline. They can't even look at the work until it comes in. So although we breathe a sigh of relief if we get more of the entries earlier and they don't all come in at the last minute, it gives us more of a chance to vet them, to make sure that they're not coming in the wrong category. Because if there's errors that way, they can be disqualified. We do our best to move things around if they come in on the wrong category, if there's some kind of error, if there's something missing. Last year, very often I needed to contact organizations, schools, to say, we didn't get an upload. That upload didn't come through, or just mistakes on the entrance end that we want to help you with, because we want you to enter. We want the judges to receive your best work. And the more entries that come in at the last minute, the harder it is to assist with that. Brian, do you want to take a look at?
Yeah, let's take a look at, let's see if I go full here. That's going to mess it up.
You're full.
Slideshow, is it?
Yep.
Okay.
If you're on, viewing it.
Yeah, I can just click on these little icons here.
Yeah, there we go.
So this is basically just to walk you through what you're going to see on the website. You'll wind up here. You want to be on the right-hand side, Mark of Excellence Awards. The Sigma Delta Chi's are on the left for the professional folks, which you'll be doing after you get out of school. But on the right, you click on, so you'll need to click on Enter the Mark of Excellence Awards. You'll encounter this page here where you can set up an account. So create a username, password, the usual. Then you're going to wind up coming here, and it's going to give you a little explanation about the award entry system. There's even a spot here where you can click and read the the MOE rules. And then you're going to go.
But hold on one second there. If you go back for just a second.
Yeah.
So the important button there is that orangish one that says create new MOE award entry. That's where you're going to actually enter, click on and pick your category and enter.
So you'll click there and you'll wind up here. Lou, you want to walk us through this one?
You'll want to know what your region is because, and this is actually a good opportunity to explain for anyone coming in new. The awards for every category are by region initially. We have regional winners, a regional winner and 2 runners-up at most for each category. Now, our judges do have permission, license. If they don't find excellence in 3 entries, they can give a first place winner and then 1 finalist. They can give just a first place winner if they want to. They can go maximum and give a first place winner and 2 finalists, or in some cases, if they don't find excellence among the entries, they can say no award. Those happen. But you're entering by your region and you're competing against those in your region. Now, you should also know that we do a judge swap. So for instance, it might be region 1 is being judged by judges from region 9, or region 10 is being judged by judges from region 3. So you're not being judged by those, in your area. That just helps us keep it all fair. And judges do tell us if they have a conflict of interest with any of the entrants. And then we reassign them based on that. So we make sure that stays clean. Then you're clicking on a 2 or 4 year, you're picking the main category. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we've combined some of those categories this year. So print/online, including magazines, are all under 1 category this year. And you'll see the other ones, and there are also ones that are across multiple categories that you'll see in there. And then after that, you'll pick the subcategory within that main category. So making sure you assign it into the right place. And then you're putting a description, your title, a 1-sentence description, and then the date that it was published, date or dates that it was published or broadcast. That's very important. If it's print, we want to know, if it's online, we want to know when it was first offered online. Then we're going on, then you will continue to the next page.
And so we've got some basic identifier information, right, Lou?
That's right. And make sure it's very helpful. This information goes into a master file. So when we're actually sending out the awards, we need to know where things are going to go. So make sure that this information is accurate so that we don't get returned. So you get the certificates that you've earned or the plaques that you've earned.
And of course, there's $20 per entry for SBJ members and then $30 per entry for non-members. So, and Lou, how much is a student membership just on its own?
Oh, I would need to check that. I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Because it might be if you're going to enter more than 1 category, it might be worth just saying, you know what, I'm going to become a member if you're not already. And then that way it drops your fee and it all evens out and you become a member. So the next one is your selected category details. Lou, can you explain a little bit more about, so this is going to be the qualifications for the entries, right, Lou?
Right. This is just the general. By the way, before I forget, college student is $37.50 a year. If you're a freshman or sophomore, you can join for $100 and be covered for your entire college career.
Nice.
But okay, so yeah, this is just explaining details for each of the categories that you have entered. Okay. So it'll fill you in with what information you have there. This is where you're uploading files. Make sure you're selecting the right files. Make sure you're checking off if that file is your cover letter, if it's supplemental material. So basically, you'll upload a file, and you'll select it from your computer. You put that will show up. You'll click on that. You'll upload the file. Then you can go back into that same zone and upload your cover letter or upload supplemental material, and make sure you click there. We do find that sometimes that is missed, and so when an entry comes in, there'll be 5 files there, and it's not clear which one which one is the actual entry and which one is supplemental material and which one is a cover letter. And by supplemental material, we often mean if there was a follow-up, if there was something where an award was won or some action resulted, particularly like in an investigative piece, if there was some kind of action that resulted from that and you want to show that happened. That isn't your entry itself. That's not what's being judged, but it's giving context and showing the impact of your work.
And then the last two is an opportunity to review, make sure you got everything correct, and finish up with your total. And is this, Lou, where you put info in terms of payment? So you add to the entry to the cart and then you go through the payment process, right?
That's correct. That's
okay.
correct.
And
We also, one of the things I wanted to mention, because of while there are specific categories, sometimes in a region, we might find that, let's say in one of the photography categories, if there's a large and small division, but there are 3 or fewer entries in one, in either small or large, we have the, we sort of take it on ourselves to combine those categories. So there may be cases where if there are very few entries in a category, that will combine the large and small divisions. That occasionally will happen. And just want you aware of that, because sometimes there's a surprise. Depending on, sometimes a small school will find themselves winning in a category that covers both small and large, which is very exciting.
all right, let me stop my share screen here and let's see. Do we have any more additional? I did want to clarify on the newscasts for Rick that these should be. I think your best bet is to stay with the live that you talked about staying with. No edits, no cleanup, no nothing. You just basically take your best newscast and you submit that. I mean, at the TV stations, they'll have a day and they'll say, we want your newscast from that day. And if you made a flub, you made a flub. But then there's other categories where you say, you know what, my best newscast was on that day, or my best coverage was that breaking news. So depending on the category, you just have to use what it is you're putting out for your viewers and hope it fits the category and go from there.
I want to talk to you a little bit too about the next level. Once we have regional winners and those are announced, we then have the winning entry for every category set against each other with another set of judges to find a national winner in each category. Once we have those determined, that's an additional award level, then we pick the top winner in each of those categories, and a panel will decide which of those are being considered for the MOE award, which is our sort of best in show, best of year award, and that can be across almost any of the categories. There are some that are sort of modified. For instance, when we have best student magazine or best all-around radio newscast, best independent online publication, those are only eligible for a MOE if they cover one topic. But other than that, just about every category is considered for that major award.
And we had a question from Kevin about, are the submissions made by the student or the advisor?
Either one.
Whoever's
Either one.
cutting the check.
That's right.
Whoever's credit card it is, if the school's going to pay for entries, then yeah, your advisor will probably have some input. But if you're doing it on your own, enter whatever you like.
Yes, right? Advisors certainly can enter for students.
And who are the judges? Are they students or professionals, Luke?
They are professional journalists from different regions for the regional awards, and also professionals when we get up to the nationals and to the MOE. We also will be having an announcement within a few days about, well, I'll just tease it out for now, but pay attention to spj.org. You're going to hear an announcement in a few days about one of our categories that is getting an upgrade.
And how many national MOEs do we give out?
We possibly one in every category. One in every one of the categories.
Get a win in that category, in whatever category you're in.
Exactly. So if you have won the regional, then you are being considered for the national.
So we've got about 2 minutes left. Does anybody have any other pressing questions? Joanna, do you want to chime in? Oh, Alexandra, go ahead.
Thank you. I have like 5, which should I prioritize them?
Well, you know what? If you want to put them, why don't you throw out the top one, and then we can follow up in the chat after, and we can kind of keep that going a little bit.
Yeah, give us the one that you think is the most likely to impact the most entrants.
Sure. Let's see. I'm looking for the ones I wrote. Okay. Let's see. This is for the people who will watch this recording later. What are the best categories for satirical work, say headlines and articles? Like, you know, and the argument's been made that Last Week Tonight and other satirical TV shows are a form of journalism. So assuming that premise is true, is there a category that would be best for, say, an Onion article that's about a news item?
We don't have a humor category, but we do have opinion categories. And I would think that it would lean more into the opinion or cartooning categories.
Sure.
It would be tough to have a satiric piece run against, you know, an investigative broadcast feature. And we don't give awards specifically for headlines.
So
and that's actually an art that is kind of I mean, that's another thing that's evolving. I know some of the local SBJ chapters, and I've won some back in the day for headlines, but back before search engine optimization, headlines used to be a lot more interesting.
let's real quick go to Joanna, and then we'll wrap up with our president.
No, yes, I've been like really, more questions are coming up and stuff like that. So I'm really happy about participation and everybody asking all of these wonderful questions. One that you did ask, Alexandra, was that whether you get a heads up whether you have an advisor or not and stuff like that. The heads up is that what if you don't submit your work, then your advisor does. Otherwise, it's just submitting. There's no heads up in that because it's the quality of your work that we are going to be judging. So perhaps if you have somebody in your corner that's willing to submit for you, lucky for you. But thank you so much. I mean, this has been like my first experience here with SBJ, with reaching out with students and going through the specifics. And a lot of this conversation we've been having, and I'm really, really, you know, excited about the way that we are helping you know, our future journalists, your journalists now, but also the future of journalism is just so bright with you guys. And I'm excited about this. And also you can't, I don't think, Lou, you can't submit both in the professional category and MOE, right? One story.
We mentioned that, no, we don't cross-reference that, so you are welcome to enter in both if it was professionally published. What we do want to stress, though, that a student needs to enter not where they live, but in the area where their school is.
Okay.
That's the region that you're entering. We do get some international entries. We try to find matches where either an international school has an affiliation with a certain university. We do our best to put those in the best category.
Well, I had fun with you guys, you know, when we were going through the categories and combining them and having all this intellectual conversation about little minute things. And it was just incredibly fun, you know, going through this process.
Yeah, I love going into the weeds on it.
So if you have questions, email Lou at HQ, and Rebecca, take us home.
Rebecca.
Well, I'd love to use this time for me, but I want to toss it to Megan and Alexandra because they're students. And I want you to give us your best inspiration to students out there who right now think, I'm not good enough for an award, so I'm not going to even bother entering. Or the ones that maybe didn't get an award last year and they're thinking, I didn't win last year. Why should I join this year? Give me your words of inspiration. I'm going to start with Megan.
All right, and let me try to think about how I can pare it down. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I think that the words of that I would give would be just to go for it, because you definitely won't win anything if you don't submit anything. And so the worst that happens is you're not chosen. And then the best thing that happens is that you have the opportunity to an accepted award. So I would highly recommend submitting, and each year is very different in terms of the types of news that you might be submitting. And so because everything is new all the time, that's why so many of us want to go into journalism, pick something unique and just go for it if it's something that you're even remotely interested in.
Thank you. Alexandra.
Sure. I mean, did you see that lettering in the first cartoon? Like the standards are low. It's like, just submit your work. Just and I don't know if these awards are like internships where if you submit 1 year and you don't get in, they see that you've applied later and say, oh, never mind. So anyway, it's good practice to apply, to get used to applying, to getting your name out there. Like I applied for a grant the other day. Turns out I'm not eligible for that grant, but I got an opportunity to practice writing essays, describing my work, and to practice that kind of emotional exercise of putting yourself out there. So I recommend that you do it. You never know. I was a freshman when I submitted those cartoons, and just try it, echoing what Megan said. Exactly.
Thank you. I'll put it back to you, Brian.
Well, that's it. We appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out through the website, through the emails that are in the chat. And thank you all very much and good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you.
We look forward to reading your work.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.